Hey YouTube, so widen you out a little bit. You can see my messy garage beneath me and my bicycle. Hey, tilt you up a little bit. So, today I want to talk a little bit about people asking questions about which's the best bike to buy, whether electric's the best. And that question is really more about how much riding you're going to do. So, some people ask why I bought my Trek, and the simple answer is longevity. I do not believe riding a folding bike every day for exercise would be the best choice for most people. Actually, the only reason we bought a folding bike was so we had somewhere uh, out of the elements to store our bikes when we're camping or going camping. So that's one of the reasons we bought a folding bike. Now, if I was going to buy a bicycle just to exercise, it would never be a folding bike. That mechanism is subject to wear, uh, shocks and stuff, and you're going to wear it out eventually. Whereas in a standard frame, there's no wear point there. So, in the sense that you should buy something that is appropriate for your situation. Now, if you're going camping, um, some people will say they want a folding bike to put them inside the vehicle when they're camping. That's the only way you can absolutely say they're not going to get stolen in your campsite is if they're locked up. Yeah, you can lock them to your trailer, but the chances someone's going to steal your trailer is pretty small. But still a possibility. I do not subscribe to the thought of putting bicycles on the back of my trailer. First of all, my trailer, uh, which you guys are, is right in front of me, is says right on the bumper you can't mount anything to it other than the spare tire. So there's reasoning for that. In this case, I don't think it's built strong enough to mount anything to that extra. If you got two bikes, a rack, you're talking easily 200 pounds, maybe in the 220 range. So with the spare tire on there, you're just way too much weight on the back of your trailer. It also affects the hitch, so you need to keep that in mind. The more weight you move to the back of the trailer, the less weight you have on your hitch, and less control you have. So in some cases, that 600 pounds that you have on, or 1,000 pounds that you have on hitch, is needed to maintain control of your trailer. It's pretty chilly out here today, so I'm not going to stay out here a long time. So, the best bike for you will be, you need to question yourself on what you're going to use it for, whether you need it to fold, and those kind of questions. Having spent so much time in the looking at electric bikes in the past few years, I can tell you this much: that almost universally all the bikes in the $6 to $1,000 range have basically the same equipment on them as far as derailleurs. Um, there are some out there that have front derailleurs, but not very many of them. So we have derailleur, the chain, and cause this is a cassette, and on the electric it's a free wheel. The difference is one screws on and one is a splined thing that holds the cassette, and this is in multiple pieces where the free wheel's in just a single piece. They both require special tools to remove them, and they're not universal. Cassette is different than a free wheel tools. So the higher the quality, the more it costs. Uh, so you're looking at part of the reason why the bikes uh, cost more. Uh, the funny thing in bike industry is the more it weighs, the less it costs. In the sense that the things they're making typically have more steel in them, or more aluminum, or more whatever. Uh, this bike weighs, what did we say, 50 some pounds, 51 pounds, and the electric weighs, they say 63, but I personally think it weighs closer to 70. It just depends on what you have on it. Mine weighs closer to 70. I think I weighted at 68 with no accessories on it. So we bought this level of bike. One, we wanted to be in the $3,000 range. We didn't want to spend more on that. And two, availability at the time when we bought these bikes, it was getting really tough to find one to buy. So that's why we've got this. It's been a good bike. I got almost 1,000 miles on it. We haven't ridden much this year. And speaking of which, I'll give you a little update. The doctor couldn't absolutely tell me that I didn't have cancer, because the way, the kind of tumor I have, he says, is a matrix, and they can't biopsy it because one spot might not be cancerous and the next might. So they're just going to go in and remove it. So I have surgery coming scheduled pretty soon, so that pretty much takes the bike riding out for the rest of the year. They don't want me to inflame it, and the reason they want to remove the tumor is they say it will weaken the bone eventually, if it isn't already weakened. So that's where we are with my health update. So he said he didn't think it was cancerous. The best bet is to remove it, to be absolutely, he told me I didn't need to have it removed, but I'm going to go and have it done. I'd rather be safe than sorry with that. So, on to the bicycles. These have stainless steel spokes, so the wheels tend to stay true and not loosen up like they do with the hub drive with just plain steel spokes. The spokes stretch. Doesn't matter what they are. They eventually stretch to the point that they break. Usually stress breaks it at where the spoke head goes through the hub, but it can break anywhere, but that's usually where they break. So eventually with your electric and this bike, you're going to end up with enough stress to break spokes. Once you break one, you can replace it, but when you break 3 or 4, then it's time to rebuild the wheel. Now, there's bike shops out there that don't rebuild wheels anymore. It might be a project that you have to take on yourself. Electric will tell you the spoke sizes. Somebody was telling me that they're equal, so that would be unusual, because typically this side is shorter than the other side on a bike because of the wheel dish. How the wheel's dished and mounted in the bike is different than what you would think. So front wheels are typically all same size spokes, but back wheels are typically shorter on the drive side and longer on the non-drive side. So getting on with, so the bicycle choice for you may be something that you're really going to have to do a lot of research on. Don't buy a bike because of price. Now, if you buy the electric to ride every day, you're going to find that if you ride, say, 100 miles a week, you're going to wear the bike parts out fairly fast. Now, the frame may last 100,000 miles, it might last 10,000 miles. I don't know, I can't say. But the bike parts are the same thing you would find on a Huffy. And when somebody used to come into bike shop, and it used to piss my boss off, the first question I'd ask him is, how often do you ride? And if they told me, oh, I'm going to ride the bike once a week, I told them your best bet would be go buy a Huffy, and when it needs something, just buy another one. Because the $120 that we were charging back then to do a tune-up was the whole price of a bicycle. So it used to piss my boss off. I'd tell him that I think the cheapest bike we were selling back then was $299, and that was a Trek like 800 or something. And although it was better than a Huffy, but not by much. So I would tell them to spend their money somewhere else, and that made my boss mad. But the truth of the matter is, I could sold them $1,000 bike that they would never wore out. But if they were only going to ride it once a week, what's the chances that it would end up being a wall hanger that they never rode at all? And in the end, 5 years from now, they end up selling it for 20% of what they paid for it, or 10% of what they paid for it, and they're not happy. They spent all that money and it was wasted. So you have to really be honest with yourself and say, if I'm going to ride this every day during the summertime, or I'm going to use it to commute to work, I'd be better served to spend the money and buy something I know that's going to last me at least 5 years, and not have to spend gobs of money to keep it going for a couple of years. So that's why I have this. I know this is going to outlast the electric, just in the simple fact that it's designed to be ridden every day, whereas the electric is for the casual rider, somebody that's going to ride it a couple of times a week, not every single day, 20 miles. And then you have some guys that put 8,000 miles in it in all kinds of weather conditions, and then they're yelling at me that I recommended a bike to them that didn't last. Well, the fact of the matter is, I didn't recommend the bike to them. I recommended the bike as being a good value for the money for certain situations. So if you're looking for a bike that's going to last you 20 years, you're going to have to spend some money. There's just no way around it. The batteries aren't going to last 20 years, but you're going to be able. Bosch, for example, guarantees that this battery or an equivalent will be available for 15 years. So, but electric won't guarantee you that they will even have bike parts for that bike in 15 years, because they can't. They don't make the bikes. China does. The vast majority of bikes anymore are either made in Taiwan, China, or some other third world country. Trek doesn't even make all their bikes in the United States for the most part. Only the upper end, the bikes that you're spending 10 grand on or something, are made, or the carbon fiber bikes are almost universally made in the U.S. But I think, if I remember right, this says made in Taiwan. Now, Taiwan is a world-class bike maker, so don't take that as a negative thing. But I can tell you, in the industries in the 80s, bike manufacturers were starting to outsource their products to Taiwan, because they were much cheaper to make there. And in the coming years, they became equal to or more expensive to make in the than it was in the U.S. And in the end, now it's considered a premier country to get a bike made in, because they make good product. But in the beginning, it wasn't that way. When in the 80s, you got a bike from Taiwan, you didn't know if it was going to last you till tomorrow, not alone any time in the future. So eventually China will be the same way. Eventually China's cost to manufacture a bike will be so high that those companies that are sending their products overseas to be made will eventually send them back. It's just the way things are. It might not be in my lifetime, but it might be in somebody else's. So, yeah. got to spend the money. If you're going to ride it every day, and honestly say you're going to ride it every day and commute to work or ride in all weather conditions, you have to buy a bike designed for that. Electric, although I've ridden mine in the rain, isn't meant to be ridden in all weather conditions. I've never ridden it in the wintertime when the roads were salty, because I don't think it would survive a good salty ride. The bearings would be shot, and that front wheel bearing wouldn't last, because it's not a very good wheel hub. And I'm not so sure that the back ones would. I don't know how well that electric motor is sealed, but I'm going to assume it isn't sealed very well, if at all. So keep that in mind. If you're going to ride in all weather conditions, you need a bike designed for all weather conditions. I talked enough today. So just a little update. We're going to try to get this thing, the UTV, out one more time before I have to stick it in the garage. And that's what I was planning on doing, was working on the garage today. And then I was like, it's only 48 degrees out here. If I was moving, it'd be okay. But I need to get the garage cleaned out so I have a place to store this winter. If you have any questions, comments, or want a recommendation for a bike for your situation, you can comment on this video. I will steer you in the right direction. I'm not if you guys are thinking I'm a Trek fan, you're wrong. I have owned Diamondback, Trek, Cannondale. I've owned the most Treks, so I've owned more expensive Treks than this one too. Yeah. So I'm going to call that a video. I know I probably smuggled the waters a little bit, but you need to go to, even if you're not going to buy a bike from a bike shop, you need to go talk to them to get them to steer you in the right direction. Sometimes they'll talk to you, sometimes they won't even talk to you. I've been in shops like that just recently, that I went in and had a question about a particular bike, and they didn't want to answer it. I walked out of there. It's like, they'll never get any of my business. If they won't at least try to steer you in the right direction, they may not have the product that you need. They may have, or they may not have it at a price that you can afford, but they may know somebody that does have something that will work for you. I hope you have a good bike shop in your area that will answer questions. But if they won't, if you're getting the runaround, I'll steer you straight. I don't have nothing to make by steering you to something that will work for your situation. And I ain't gonna oversell you something either. And that's what happens too often in bike shops. They oversell you something that turns into a wall hanger that you never use, or will never work for you. Hope you all have a great week. If you have any questions, like I said, put them in the comments. Like and subscribe. If you don't like it, don't like it. Hey, have a great day.